Today, we're going to be looking at who is really suppressing the price of Bitcoin. And this video, if you watch it to the end, might surprise you because it's not who we all think. Naturally, this has been a question on most people's mind as the price of Bitcoin is only really up by about 30 to 40% compared with what it did in that 2021 all-time high. And a lot of people are kind of looking around and they're noticing, hang on a minute, public companies, billionaires, hedge funds, they're all buying a lot of Bitcoin. Why is the price not going up? Well, I saw this article in Bloomberg this morning. Wall Street is seizing control of Bitcoin's center of gravity. And I thought to myself, hang on a minute, what does this mean? Is Wall Street in the price of Bitcoin? Well, I found this article particularly interesting, especially when we notice the fact that the derivatives markets built around BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF are ballooning. And then at the same time, we're seeing this discussion and rise of paper Bitcoin accelerate year after year. This really emerged in 2022. And then when we start thinking about who could be responsible for this paper Bitcoin, saw a couple of interesting headlines this week. We got Ray Dalio talking about why he recommends a 15% allocation to Bitcoin. But the more interesting headline I saw this week that is very related to this discussion of paper Bitcoin is this headline right here from billionaire Peter Thiel. We can see Peter Thiel jumped in and he scooped up 9% of the publicly traded company Bitmine. This is a Bitcoin miner. And of course, let's not forget what Peter Thiel recently said about BlackRock and Bitcoin being co-opted in 2024. Has Peter changed his tune? Or does Peter know something about Bitcoin and it being co-opted that we don't? I want to play a clip for you guys.
Maybe Larry Fink with the BlackRock ETF surrendered to the forces, the anti-ESG forces, or maybe it's more like Bitcoin's been co-opted by them, and I worry it was more the latter.
Okay, different question. SpaceX, that's in the...
So that's billionaire Peter Thiel worrying that Bitcoin has been co-opted with BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF. I do want to talk about what exactly this co-option might look like, and I do want to break down whether it could be because of the rise of the derivatives markets or all of these options markets being built upon Bitcoin. We're going to be talking about all of that today and more because I think this question right now, is the Bitcoin price being suppressed? It's a question everybody's really asking themselves, especially considering the fact that we have nearly 1 million Bitcoin being bought by publicly traded companies just in the last 3 years alone. And what I think is really fascinating is Bloomberg is now starting to touch on this topic. So let's start breaking down this article from Bloomberg that dropped this morning. It's titled, Wall Street is Rewriting the Rules of Bitcoin Trading. Now, again, I find this interesting because they specifically said Bitcoin trading. They didn't say Bitcoin. They're talking about what is going on behind closed doors, Bitcoin trading. They're talking about spot markets, derivatives markets. Okay, I'm not stretching here. This is literally the entire article. Let's break down all of the charts that they're looking at right here. Wall Street is seizing control of Bitcoin's center of gravity. At the center of the action is BlackRock's Bitcoin Trust. Now, the biggest Bitcoin ETF with $86 billion in history. And what's fascinating is we can see Bloomberg said it's highly unusual for an ETF to develop an option market of this magnitude ever, let alone in 8 months after launch. So we can see IBIT's Bitcoin ETF, we're up to $4 billion of daily notional volume per month. Okay, this is what's going on with the options market. We're looking at the ETF options. These in the blue bar here is the IBIT contracts. This is massive. And what's interesting, we're talking about price suppression. What's the number 2 ETF on this list we're looking at? GLD. That stands for gold, of course. This is the gold spot ETF. Most people know for every 1 ounce of physical gold there is in these big bullion banks, there's about 300 paper contracts for that same one physical ounce of gold. The leverage in the gold markets is about 300 to 1. This is how gold's price has been able to be tamped down and suppressed for so many years. Again, is Bitcoin's price being suppressed through the options market? This is something I want to dive into. But I found this entire article really interesting because on multiple occasions, they kind of said the quiet part out loud. US Bitcoin ETFs grab a bigger share in crypto trading. I think this is interesting. You can see trading's really starting to ramp up in 2025. That's fascinating, but it's not nearly as interesting as this chart. This is the one I want to show you. So we can see in the black line, this is looking at iShares Bitcoin Trust ETF. And in the yellow line, this is Deribit. So Deribit is kind of like the OG Bitcoin options platform, so to say. Most Bitcoiners have been using this, platform for a very long time to play around in the derivatives market and the options market. But have a look at the rise, that black line, just catching up very quickly. Who is this representing? Let's take a peek. We can see this is iShares Bitcoin Trust ETF. It's gone from effectively $0 of volume in November 2024 to nearly $35 billion of volume and nearly surpassing Deribit, which is the OG Bitcoin platform that most people have used to get exposure to Bitcoin for some time now. Again, it's a lot of people would look at this and they say, not a huge change. Deribit's still number one, but look at the rate of change. It's the rate of change that for me has been really interested at the rise of quote unquote paper Bitcoin. This is a really interesting chart. I always kind of sit back and say, hey, it's kind of interesting that in that 2021 Bitcoin bull run, coins were leaving the exchanges precipitously. Oh, that's a tough word to say on a live stream. Coins were leaving the exchanges. This is the first time we really saw that in a Bitcoin bull run. And what I think is really interesting is if you start considering the rise of paper Bitcoin and looking at how that kind of exploded in 2021 and 2022, this can kind of help to explain maybe why I think the price of Bitcoin's been tamped down and suppressed. Have a look at this diverge on this chart. So in the very top, we're looking at the price of Bitcoin, the blue. And then as you can see, when Bitcoin entered that bull run, have a look at what the rise of the purple line here did. This is paper Bitcoin. And have a look at this explode and kind of diverge away from this blue line. The blue line at the bottom is just looking at the spot inventory of Bitcoin on exchanges. So that little green line at the very bottom, this is pretty much tracking this. How much Bitcoin is there available on exchanges for sale today? That's what that line is looking at. But the blue line, this is looking at the how much Bitcoin is on spot exchanges. The purple line. The purple line is looking at, don't know if you guys can see this, spot plus paper Bitcoin. Today, there looks to be somewhere around 500,000 Bitcoin that is quote unquote paper Bitcoin. And this is exactly what Bloomberg is referring to in this new article that they've titled Wall Street is Rewriting the Rules of Bitcoin Trading. Now, I got sent this by a gold bug this morning. They said, hey, is Bitcoin now being suppressed? Is Bitcoin now going to be controlled by the big boys? What does this mean? What does this mean for the future of Bitcoin? Me personally, I'm not super worried because there is a really good chart I want to show you. But essentially, we focus a lot here on the number of Bitcoin on exchanges. But it's worth noting here, what's the number? 2.3 million Bitcoin on exchanges. This is interesting, but we need to be very aware of where does the rest of the Bitcoin hold? This is the very important point because the majority of the Bitcoin supply is held by yours truly, individuals. Let's take a little bit of a peep here. And again, this is going to all make sense when we put it all together in a moment. This here is looking at the 21 million Bitcoin. Again, there's only 20 million mined today. We've still got about 5% left. but we can see that individuals still hold 69% of the Bitcoin supply. This is a very, very, very important thing to be aware of, especially when we start talking about BlackRock. And when we start talking about who is buying the Bitcoin, again, I am very cognizant of recent trends. Recent trends is we're seeing some interesting things in the market. We're seeing this big transition, so to say. So we are seeing a lot of Bitcoin being sold by individuals and scooped up by who? Institutions. This is one of the most interesting charts that I've come across recently. We can see very, very clearly. This is the year-to-date change in Bitcoin holdings in 2025. Look at this. 218, I'm assuming, 1,000 Bitcoin bought by public companies and funds and ETPs. We've got 119,000 Bitcoin being bought by these entities as well. We've got governments, by the looks of things, buying 14,000 Bitcoin. I'm assuming this is North Korea coming out with their Lazarus group hacking that happened earlier in the year when they got that, I think it was $1.4 billion of Bitcoin from, was it Bybit earlier in the year? But then look at who's selling. Individuals here in this yellow chart. I find that really interesting. Very, very interesting. And new supply, minus 69,000 coins. So if I had to guess what that little column means, I'm assuming that means as soon as the Bitcoin is being mined, it's being put on an exchange and somebody's been taking that off the exchange. They've been buying it. Now, this is super interesting when we do start thinking about the bigger picture of Bitcoin. Again, we've got still a lot of Bitcoin held in the hands of individuals, cypherpunks. But again, let's be very aware, this is changing. Today, public companies, they've got more than 4% of the Bitcoin supply. That's what 900,000 coins represent. That's huge. ETFs, they've got more than 1 million coins. That's 5% of the supply. So you can all of a sudden see just between ETFs and public companies, we've got a lot of Bitcoin. We've got about 10% of the supply locked up in these entities. So again, this is what I think we should all be looking at. And I find it interesting and fascinating that, let's call them the crypto crowd. We'll call them the crypto crowd, such as individuals like this guy, Scott Milker, talking about the fact that Bitcoin is being co-opted by Wall Street. We can see here, maybe Bloomberg got their tweet from this gentleman, but we can see Scott Milker here said, going to have to permanently eliminate my co-opted tweets. Now, this is fascinating. He obviously started a lot of this debate over the weekend, which is why I want to show you a couple of these tweets. We don't normally look at Twitter unless there's some pretty interesting stuff to take a peep at. Bitcoin is amazing, but it's obviously been co-opted to some degree by the very people that it was created as a hedge against. Many of the most ardent early whales have seen their faith shaken and have been selling at these prices. So again, I told you we had a lot to cover today. What's happening? Well, earlier in the week, we also did talk about the fact that Galaxy Digital sold 80,000 Bitcoin. This is what I believe Scott Milker is referring to. Again, I don't necessarily think that early OG whales are selling 80,000 Bitcoin because Bitcoin's being co-opted. I disagree with that. I purely think that, hey, if you've hodled Bitcoin since it was, what, $1, and hey, I mean, you've got hundreds of billions of dollars of wealth, maybe tied up in multiple different Bitcoin wallets, like this individual could have, sure, sell some. We don't have an explanation for why this Bitcoin OG is selling. All we do know is that 80,000 Bitcoin were dumped on the open market. And Bitcoin's, last time I checked, $120,000 a coin. So I can't see the bearish argument here. I'm struggling to see the argument that Bitcoin is being co-opted by Wall Street. Again, look at the impact on price that this huge whale had by dumping the Bitcoin. You can see these volume bars. Check them out. That's actually pretty interesting. I don't normally look at all these stupid indicators on charts, but you can see pretty clearly there's a lot of selling here when we're in this $110,000 to $120,000 range. I'm assuming these big red bars, they're probably representing what the whale is doing, the whale who dumped those 80,000 coins. But what I think is more significant is look at what's happened to the Bitcoin price. We've just been going sideways for 2 weeks here, despite the fact 80,000 Bitcoin we just dumped onto the market. By my quick maths, I believe that is something like 160 days worth of supply for Bitcoin. I think there's like, 450 Bitcoin mined a day. Quick maths tells me that that's about 170, 180 days worth of supply. Just got dumped onto the market and no impact of the price. Don't you think that is interesting? Who is buying? Who is keeping the price up here? Again, this is something this kind of action in a Bitcoin bull market is something we haven't really seen before. When we kind of zoom out, this is why a lot of people are saying, hey, is this Bitcoin cycle just a little bit different? Could the emergence of these Wall Street funds maybe have created something else? Maybe a different type of cycle? I think it's a chance. Don't get me wrong. I do think it's interesting that Bitcoin's pretty much been trading in this. A lot of people have been drawing this. Bitcoin's been trading in a very, very, very tight channel over the past, pretty much since that 2022 bottom. Again, what's interesting about that 2022 bottom? I've kind of been speculating for some time now that I think that was an orchestrated bottom. I think this 2021 bull run that we saw here was very unique. It was very different. And I think it was something we hadn't really seen before in Bitcoin history. It was really strange that Bitcoin kind of got topped out early and we didn't get to see that big parabolic phase right here in the top at about $65,000 a coin. Obviously, China came out and banned Bitcoin mining. Then we had Elon Musk come out, coincidentally, days later, saying that he's going to stop accepting Bitcoin for payment. But again, when we kind of like zoom out here, you can see typically once Bitcoin enters a bull run and we get to about 12 months after the halving, you can see the price kind of goes parabolic. This bull run's been very different. We've been in this very tightly controlled range since 2022. It's nearly 3 years now. Bitcoin's just been stair-stepping higher, and we haven't really seen a lot of these big drawdowns that we're used to seeing. We've still seen 20, 25% corrections. But again, when Bitcoin really starts going parabolic, we've kind of been used to different things. Like in 2017, there was a lot of very violent, very sharp, very rapid 38% corrections, as you can see here. Look at how many. I believe that is 6 corrections bigger than 29% in less than 5 months. They were really sharp. They were really violent. And when you take a look at the chart of Bitcoin, the price was naturally going absolutely parabolic in 2017. You can see it pretty clearly. 2017 was a crazy year. When I kind of zoom out and put this on weekly, you might be able to see what I mean. So again, I think the days of the 2017 bull run, I don't think they're over. I still think we're going to see some of these parabolas. I think this 2021 bull run was a little bit of an abnormally, but I do think it's interesting when we start talking about, hey, is the price of Bitcoin being suppressed? I personally think yes. I've been talking about this for a very long time. I think since 2021, when the big boys became aware of Bitcoin, I've been screaming from the rooftops. I think it's fascinating that Bitcoin on exchanges is leaving the exchanges. This is now a 5-year trend. It's been going on consistently for 5 years straight. We've never seen this before. Okay, before 2020, we were just living in an environment when Bitcoin on exchanges only increased. Didn't matter if it was a bull run or a bear market. Bitcoin on exchanges only increased. Since then, everything's completely changed. Whether it's a bull run or a bear market, Bitcoin on exchanges has only decreased. I do think there could be some signal there. And I do find it interesting that this has coincided with these derivatives markets and options markets being built out that this brand new Bloomberg article is talking about. I think this is fascinating that even Bloomberg, maybe they're saying the quiet parts out loud here with this new article that they've titled, Wall Street is Rewriting the Rules of Bitcoin. Again, I don't want to just give you the speculative take here. I want to also play devil's advocate here and give you a balanced analysis. Again, these guys, there could be multiple explanations for the rise of paper Bitcoin. Maybe a lot of people like Jim Chanos are doing these very complicated hedging and wedging trades. So he's shorting MicroStrategy while buying Bitcoin. I know there's other entities in the market who might be writing, they might be shorting Bitcoin in the options and the derivatives markets by buying things like puts. That's an option. So that could be showing some negative sell pressure on Bitcoin in the paper markets, but they could be buying the underlying asset, kind of like hedging and wedging themselves. We could be seeing a little bit of this action. It is plausible enough to say that, hey, we could be seeing some of this. But again, my conspiratorial take here, it's not many people like to hear it, but again, there is a conspiratorial angle here. And I think it makes sense when we start thinking about what was Wall Street doing and saying about Bitcoin in 2021 and 2022. Publicly, BlackRock was saying Bitcoin's not ESG friendly, proof of work's a bad thing, we need to stop this Bitcoin mining thing, while privately they were telling their clients to buy Bitcoin. Doesn't that make you just scratch your head? It's interesting. It's interesting, don't you think? Elon Musk said, hey, yeah, I agree with BlackRock. Bitcoin's not a green asset. I'm going to stop accepting Bitcoin for payment at Tesla, but I'm not going to sell the $1.5 billion of Bitcoin on my balance sheet. I found that was a really interesting move as well. And of course, this came weeks after China banned Bitcoin mining for being dirty. And of course, let's not forget, I don't want to go down the China rabbit hole. I might save that for later because that's a little bit of a conspiratorial take. But I just think all of these little pieces of narratives that popped up in 2021 and 2022, combined with Sam Bankman-Fried naked shorting 80,000 Bitcoin. Again, he was supposed to be holding 80,000 coins at FTX. And when they went bankrupt, he had 0. And we got the leaked transcripts of his phone calls with Caroline Ellison, where he directly said, every single time Bitcoin's above $20,000 a coin, sell it all. So we've got like 4 to 5 data points here. And again, let's not forget Sam Bankman-Fried, very connected to the Democrats in America who were in office in 2022 during this kind of muted Bitcoin bull run. I think when you start looking at things holistically here, you can put together a pretty interesting puzzle, so to say, a pretty interesting story, which is, again, maybe why I lean a little bit more to the conspiratorial argument for maybe somebody is suppressing the price of Bitcoin. I think it's really interesting. So again, we've talked about Galaxy Digital, but there's been more rumors about who's been selling Bitcoin that I do want to get into in a minute. That's very important to cover. But while we're talking about paper Bitcoin, I know some people might be feeling a little bit powerless. What can I do? What can I do to stop paper Bitcoin? Again, Bitcoin is very different to the gold market. We covered the gold market here with the chart that I brought up. I think it's a really interesting one to remind you guys of, because a lot of people are worried that Bitcoin could be controlled like the gold market. Let's pull this up. IBIT contracts approaching the size of the GLD contracts. Again, we need to be aware of this. Let's be aware. But I think obviously Bitcoin is very different because of its limited supply nature. We talk about this all the time. Bitcoin's very, very different to gold. You can take self-custody of the Bitcoin literally in seconds. And that's not even an exaggeration. You can take custody of the Bitcoin in seconds, which is why I'm incredibly bullish on Bitcoin and why I am kind of bearish of Wall Street taking control of Bitcoin, like the big institutions like Bloomberg is talking about. Bitcoin's incredibly different. You can't take custody of your gold, which is why I think the price of gold has been suppressed. And I think that's why I find it really fascinating. We've got 300 paper contracts of gold for every 1 physical ounce of gold. It's too hard to take self-custody of. Of course, this is why I think Bitcoin is different, because you have the power to take self-custody of your Bitcoin. You don't need to trust BlackRock. You don't need to trust Coinbase or Brian Armstrong with the Bitcoin that they're supposed to hold on exchanges. Okay, taking self-custody is incredibly easy to do in Bitcoin. Again, there are so many different options for you guys to use when it comes to taking self-custody of your Bitcoin. I've got a ton of options with me right here. I've literally tried them all. And I can say there's an option for everyone. Obviously, for super advanced users, a cold card's great. For people who just want to keep it simple, I like Trezors and Ledgers. They're super cool. I've got a Ledger. I've used a Ledger since 2017. It was actually my very first hardware wallet way back in 2017. I don't know if the scratches on this thing kind of date it a little bit. But again, I think Trezors, Ledgers, they're great for most people. Ledgers even give you guys $10 of free Bitcoin if you use the link down below in the description of today's video. They've got some really cool options here. They've got this touchscreen Ledger stacks, which again is super cool. I think I'm really excited by the different options you can get from Ledger. You can get the simple Ledger Nanos, or you can get the more advanced ones like the Ledger Stacks or the Ledger Flex. Some of these guys have even got like a curved screen to them. They kind of look like a mobile. Super cool options. So recommend you check them out. Once you buy your Bitcoin and you put it on a hardware wallet, I also recommend you guys back up those 12 or 24 words on titanium. Okay, Bitcoin on paper. Honestly, I don't have any paper with me right now, but what I actually do have is some of this. This is toilet paper. Bitcoin, 12 or 24 words on paper. It's as good as this. I wouldn't even wipe my backside with it, okay? Again, paper, it's not Bitcoin friendly. I would never recommend a friend or a family member to put Bitcoin on this trash. Put it on titanium. I really like what Stamseed's creating. They have titanium plates. This should be the industry standard in my opinion. I think these are really good. So again, you guys can get 15% off anything you want to get from Stamseed with the promo code that All Night Hider just dropped into the live chat for you guys. So Luke15 gets you 15% off anything you want to get from Stamseed. Highly recommend you check them out. And again, this is how we defeat paper Bitcoin. You take self-custody of your Bitcoin. Again, this is why I'm optimistic and bullish on Bitcoin. I think, I hate to say it, but a lot of people are very pessimistic in the gold space because they know that they have no agency. They can't do anything to change the fact that the price of gold is greatly suppressed. So of course, we talked about Galaxy Digital dumping 80,000 Bitcoin. I think another argument I've seen in the space was America and the rumors that America was only sitting on 28,000 coins. We did recently find out that America could in fact actually be holding all of the 200,000 Bitcoin they're supposed to be holding. So again, that's bullish, that's optimistic. That's what I love to see. And again, I think just broadly, I disagree with the narrative that these whales like the Bitcoin OG who sold 80,000 Bitcoin through Galaxy Digital are having their faith shaken because it's being co-opted. I like to call out narratives when I see narratives are wrong. I don't like to call out characters. I just like to call out narratives. And I've been seeing this narrative spoken about a lot in the space. So strongly disagree with it. I don't think Bitcoin's being co-opted. Firmly disagree with what Bloomberg is talking about. Wall Street is rewriting the rules of Bitcoin trading. Completely disagree. Maybe there's a little bit of supply manipulation going on potentially. Stamping is not as archaic as some people think. I've actually stamped 24 words onto titanium in about 15 minutes. It's fun. It is fun. Archaic does take us back to our roots a few thousand years ago, doesn't it? Banging stones together. But I think it is the best standard. Olv in the chat, how low have the reserves gotten now? Great question. There's 150,000 Bitcoin on the OTC desks, and there's about 2.3 million Bitcoin on the traditional exchanges, as you guys can see right here. Let's liquidate all those 10x longs. Please, guys, do not play with leverage. Leverage is dangerous. Keep it simple. Buy Bitcoin. Put it in a hardware wallet. Again, it doesn't matter what you use. There's a ton of great options out there for hardware wallets, guys. Just get one that is best for you. And put your Bitcoin into self-custody. Oh, and of course, never, ever, ever sell your Bitcoin. Again, it's all part of like what we talk about here on the channel, sovereignty. Take sovereignty of your Bitcoin, buy it in a good exchange, take self-custody of it, never sell it by using a platform like Firefish, which is the open market for Bitcoin-backed loans. These guys don't take custody of your Bitcoin, which is why I love them. They openly tell you, we will not take custody of your Bitcoin. Okay, I love them because they're a peer-to-peer Bitcoin marketplace. They've open sourced their code so you can trust them. And I mean, hey, why I've partnered up with Firefish, and I've even got a few loans myself on Firefish right now, and I will be using them in this Bitcoin bull run. So again, what's the sovereignty stack of this channel? We buy Bitcoin, we put it into custody, we back up those Bitcoin 24 words on titanium, and then if you ever even have the urge to sell Bitcoin, you never sell your Bitcoin, you borrow against them responsibly. I do have a video coming showing you guys some calculations of just how responsible you have to be by borrowing against your Bitcoin. I never recommend anyone put a stupid amount of their net worth on a lending platform, even a very trusted one like Firefish. So I've got a video breaking down my exact Bitcoin exit strategy. I'm going to be looking at this next 6 months in this bull run. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, again, check them out if you do want to borrow against your Bitcoin. I think Firefish is great. They're even going to give you guys 30% off your first loan if you use a promo code Luke. So again, grab the discount. Free sats. Sats is great. Now let's talk a little bit more about why Bitcoin could be going up forever. Because I just think this paper attack, it's going to fail. It's simply it's impossible to control the price of Bitcoin in the long term. Sat-wise is suppressing the price of Bitcoin. I love it. I do just think, like, guys, zoom out. I think this bull run in particular, it's kind of lulling people to sleep because Bitcoin's making very slow and methodical moves. Most people are used to Bitcoin just ripping higher, and as soon as we get above an all-time high, we just rip, and it's parabolic bull run for 6 months. This cycle does look to be a little bit different in the respect that Bitcoin's just slowly, it's moving up by 50%, it's pulling back by 20%. It's moving up by 50%, it's pulling back by 20%. I think the entities dominating the market right now are being a lot more sophisticated with their buying. They're slowly getting into Bitcoin. Sorry, Christopher, I'm not long on XRP. I'm a long on Bitcoin, and I mean, just Bitcoin. My life is very Bitcoin focused. Yeah, I'm very Bitcoin focused. Let's just put it that way. I'm definitely not in crypto. If I was ever not 100% Bitcoin, maybe I'd put a little bit of my money into a house as I grow up a little bit, but even that would be less than 5% of my net worth. Maybe I'd be interested in investing in Bitcoin related companies, maybe, but that would again be with a very small amount of my net worth. I'm always 90% Bitcoin, if not higher. So no, I'm not long on XRP, my friend. Apologies about that. Just seeing what else you guys are saying in the chat. There are so many comments in here. This is insanely bullish, incredibly bullish. And this is an interesting take that Christopher, this is why I tried to get all the comments in the chat. Christopher said it needs to go up soon to stay above the inflation rate. This is true. If you actually look at the inflation adjusted Bitcoin all-time high from 2021, that's at about around $100,000 a coin. So the people saying Bitcoin's topped out, I disagree with that take strongly. If you look at its previous all-time high in 2021, we're only at 120. We're only like 20% above Bitcoin's 2021 all-time high. I don't think the bull run's even started yet. I think we're incredibly early. Incredibly early. And I agree with Michael's take. Beginners like to go 10x. They will be liquidated in the next 48 hours. They absolutely will be liquidated in the next 48. Who knows when, but I just encourage you guys, keep it safe. Don't muck around with leverage. Keep it very simple. Buy Bitcoin, put it on a hardware wallet. Never sell the Bitcoin. Again, just keep it simple. That's what we're talking about on this channel. Of course, not financial advice though. Super Cycle Steve says. I love that name, Super Cycle Steve. It's a good change up, Steve. I do notice you changed your name there. This cycle is going to end as a super cycle in 2026. Not financial advice. I think that is pretty. It's a pretty fair take. Oh, Jesus. Rock VTM. Thank you for the $100 super chat, my friend. I really appreciate it. For those who are new to the channel, there's a lot of you guys new to the channel. Rock is probably our single-handed biggest sponsor of the channel with all the super chats you've sent over the years. Thank you so much. I'm incredibly grateful. Bitcoin content vacation. I'd love to know, Rock, why are you back now? And how was your Bitcoin content vacation? Thank you for the $100 super chat. I really appreciate it. I will actually be back in your neck of the woods in about 6 weeks. My European/Asia tour will be over soon. Actually, speaking of that, if you guys are going to any conferences in Asia, I'm going to be speaking at the Bitcoin conference in Asia, and I will be speaking about just Bitcoin. Don't you guys worry about that. But if you are at the conference, come say good day. I'd love to talk about Bitcoin. If any of you guys want to pop in, say hello. If you want a discount on your tickets, you can actually use a promo code Luke10. That is also linked down below in the description to get 10% off your tickets. There's going to be some big speakers there. Eric Trump, Vice President, is going to be there. MetaPlanet CEO, Mark Moss. There's a lot of big names there speaking. And then, of course, there's this moron here speaking. I don't know why they're letting me speak, but I will be speaking there. So again, if you're in Asia, grab a discount on your tickets and come say good day. Love to catch up with you guys. And with all that said, I might end this live stream here. Thank you so much to 777 of you guys on this live stream live between Twitter and YouTube. If you enjoyed this one, subscribe to the channel. I go live at least 4 or 5 times a week, and I'm always dropping more and more content. And with all that said, guys, I'll see you in the next one.